Picture yourself as an artist in the studio, secretively planning your next masterpiece. Living off bologna sandwiches, completely absorbed in crafting your work as only you know how. Sweating over every detail, forgetting to comb your hair or bathe, long days and nights spent in isolation as your creativity feverishly ferments into a yeasty brew. Now raise your hand if you feel like this life is for you. One or two out there, at least I didn't put you all off. But when we think about Michelangelo or Picasso creating their masterpieces, do you see them alone in the studio for long periods of time? When we think about art, we think about one person creating a masterpiece and somehow coming up with an idea that's miraculously original. We talk about artists like they work in a vacuum, and yet we still expect their ideas to speak to all of us. But in an age when technology has completely opened up control over how we receive the news, advertising, and images, can art be opened up in the same way? This idea has intrigued me since I was in college 50 years ago. Nobody laughed. Jeez. But no cap, it wasn't long after Al Gore invented the internet in the 90s. Now that joke would have been funny if anybody remembered who Al Gore was. SMH. But for real, when I was in college, I had a painting professor named Jerry Rudquist, and he gave us each a letter of the alphabet to paint. So that when they were finished, each one had a style unique to the artist who had made it. We put Velcro on the backs, and they could be rearranged on the wall at any time. The idea was that the viewer could sort it however they liked, kind of like high-end refrigerator magnets. And I don't know what it was, Cat. I know exactly what it was. I liked how a whole group of people contributed to this, and it had this ongoing creativity in the way you could keep changing. So I started thinking about ways to incorporate interactivity in my own work. I made paintings on boards, cut them up with a bandsaw, like a puzzle, and extended bolts from the back so you could hang the pieces at varying depths. I made background pieces and object pieces and sets that you could mix and match, with the idea that I was extending creativity to the non-artists by allowing them to move pieces around and take them down or put up new ones. And I felt like I'd achieved some kind of postmodern enlightenment by not trying to be an artistic genius all by myself. So I thought this would be my thing. But there was this one nagging issue. And it wasn't that the pieces broke or fell down or anything like that. The issue was that even if I put a sign up saying, "People, please move the pieces around," nobody even touched them. I don't know if you've ever been to a Chinese hot pot restaurant, but if you're not eating hot pot, it's unusual for a chef at a restaurant to put all the ingredients on the table and have you cook the meal yourself. And that's kind of what I was doing. So I slowly came to the understanding that we've been conditioned to believe that art should never be touched. And there's also this unspoken expectation that the artist is the expert, and they're the ones who should be making all of the creative decisions. And so I moved away from making this kind of low-tech interactive work, but I stayed interested in involving the viewer in other ways. But that might be the topic for another TED Talk, if y'all aren't tired of my dad jokes by now. Fast forward a few years, and coming to the teaching profession has unexpectedly provided solutions to some of these issues, and satisfied the social needs and goals that I've been neglecting as an artist. Now I say social needs because although I'm naturally an introvert, I still have the need for human contact. And I say goals because I want to make a difference both for the environment we live in and the people around me. And as an artist, you should also have the goal to not be living off a diet of bologna sandwiches. Being a part of a school like Drew Charter here in Atlanta that supports putting the art into STEAM and emphasizes the importance of social justice and equity in education both motivates me and can be very rewarding. And it's my privilege to be part of this institution. And as part of our STEAM programming with our 10th grade team, we tried a new interdisciplinary collaborative project in the spring of 2022. It was called A Change is Gonna Come, and it asked students what contemporary conditions could cause a new global conflict. This project came at a time when we were still readjusting to being back in school full-time after the pandemic, and not long after the protest movement inspired by the tragic murder of George Floyd. It also came right at the outbreak of war in Ukraine. So the students had plenty of conflict to think about. But we wanted them to choose issues that were important to them and not others. So I asked them, what would you put your life on the line for? The responses were varied, but what was important was the students chose issues that deeply mattered to them. We chose Picasso's famous painting Guernica as a visual inspiration and framework for our project. The students studied cubism, fractured viewpoints, and collaging subject matter, as well as the 20th century historical context of the original painting. They studied nuclear chemistry, geometry, propaganda, and Spanish in their other classes, which also informed their imagery. With the help of Mr. Ayers in the engineering room, we used a CNC machine to cut up shapes based on the original Guernica painting, which could then be rearranged in a similar way to my earlier work. The students worked in small groups to piece together their imagery, and then they were able to rearrange the pieces according to their own aesthetic criteria. Mrs. Simmons, the technology genius and chemistry teacher on the 10th grade team, had the brilliant idea to have the students record video artist statements, and then we used visual recognition software to embed them within the painting, so that if you use a mobile device, you can scan a different section and their videos will pop up. And it's amazing. Even Al Gore probably couldn't have predicted it. So I'm really proud of them, and I also want you to think about how it used to be STEM that was popular and not STEAM. And I'm here bringing the art into STEAM. And art is important not only as a vehicle for bringing together all of these different disciplines, but also as an avenue of creative freedom for the students. And as you can see in this project, the engagement is really high because they were talking about issues that they really cared about. The other thing is that art does not have to be made alone or with bologna sandwiches. Thank you all very much for having me, and thank you, Sage and Aja, for helping me on stage.